Hey guys, how's it going? My name is Jay and I am diagnosed terminally with audiophilia. And I'll only get worse if I don't listen to music every single day. Now today we're talking about McIntosh. And this video is sponsored by McIntosh. No, I'm just joking. I wish. But we do have a sponsor and it's hifi. hifi Electronic is one of the leading designer and manufacturers of personal audio products on the planet. The company was founded by Dr. Fang Bian, an engineer and passionate audiophile who is responsible for creating some of the most beloved over-ear and in-ear headphones on the market. For more information on the company and audiophile-grade products, including the new close-back over-ear R10 headphones, which is available in both planar magnetic and dynamic versions, visit hifi.com. And also, we have a giveaway. This is the Pecan Pie. So I'm giving this away to my Patreons. Thank you, Pecan Pie, for sponsoring this giveaway as well on the Patreon page. So if you are a Patreon, then I will make a post on the Patreon page. All you have to do is comment with your favorite type of pie in the comment section of the Patreon post, and you'll be entered for that giveaway to win have a chance to win the Pecan Pie. So enjoy. Now back to this video talking about the McIntosh. Now I find it weird, kind of weird. I feel weird talking about McIntosh. So before I go, grab a cup of warm milk or something, or coffee, or whatever you feel, the choice of your beverage, because this is gonna be kind of like a tea talk with Jay. Now, the reason I feel weird is it's like making a video about Canon as a company, or Sony as a company, or Bentley as a company, or Mercedes as a company. It's weird just talking about the company as a whole without the individual product in mind. But my friends, including Tujin and many others, find that I should talk about McIntosh because I get really passionate when I talk about McIntosh, one. And two, they find that what I talk about is not something that is very well known to a lot of people. Like, they are surprised. So I think I should talk about it. But I will try to talk about the individual components in this video as well, and I think I will cover some of the gear that I have listened to with McIntosh gear in regards to McIntosh gear later on, and make a separate video about those later. So McIntosh, here's some reasons why you would buy McIntosh. Number one, now I don't even remember how many reasons, but these are the reasons that most people buy McIntosh for. So number one is good resale value. And that's a pretty big one, even though a lot of people overlook it. McIntosh gear has really good resale value, and they keep their value. And that is pretty amazing in the audio industry, because usually when you buy something and walk out the door, you lose 50% of the value. That is just kind of like the normal audio thing. Unless it's like a new product and everyone wants it. McIntosh, like for example, the vintage MC30 or the MC60, has gotten up in value, in fact, so people make money from it if you just keep it. It's like a collectible item now, which is not something that you see every day in audio industry. Now the second reason is that McIntosh sound. And I know that's kind of weird, but a lot of people know what I mean when I say that McIntosh sound. A lot of people know what I mean. And you have had to hear a McIntosh sound to understand what I'm talking about. Because to describe a McIntosh sound is kind of harder than you think. And I say this because if you were to describe McIntosh sound and then describe a very good tube amplifier sound, you can say the same about both. So for example, luscious, slightly mid-centric, holographic, easy to listen to for hours, liquid. You can say that about McIntosh sound. You can say that about good tube amplifiers too, right? So it's kind of like a good tube amplifier, but here's the thing. It's not the same as a good tube amplifier. It doesn't sound the same. There's this McIntosh sound that is alluring about McIntosh. And when you hear McIntosh gear, then you know you're hearing a McIntosh gear. There's nothing in the industry that sounds like McIntosh gear. And I know this may sound weird, but if you hear McIntosh, you'll know what I'm talking about. And this is especially true with vintage McIntosh. Now, modern McIntosh sounds a little bit more balanced now and more refined compared to the vintage McIntosh, but I still personally like that vintage McIntosh sound a little bit better, even though it's not as refined, or it has slight grain to it, but it's still more smooth and liquid and has some kind of, alluring factor. Like it has a characteristic that just makes music sound fun while being able to listen to it for long periods of time. Now, yes, I will agree that vintage McIntosh sound slightly more darker than modern McIntosh or modern gear standards, but I don't really mind it, and I think they sound great. And especially the tube amplifiers and the first solid state amplifier, the MC2505, that sounds like a tube amplifier, but it's a solid state amplifier. I just found that to be amazing. So there's a term McIntosh sound, and to have a coined term like that, you have to keep very consistent sound characteristic in the gear you make as a company to have a term like that. So there's consistency, and so McIntosh definitely has that nailed. You're hearing a McIntosh, and it mates so well with many electronics and speakers out there. Now, if you go to forums and stuff like that, some audiophiles complain that McIntosh don't do this, they're not the most detailed, they're not the most bang for the buck because they don't perform like Class A audio, or it's not the most detailed or most resolving, etc., etc. But I find that kind of funny because you don't go to buy a Bentley and then complain it's not the fastest car in the world. Now, I'm not a car guy, but I do like cars, and I'm pretty sure that Bentley is not the fastest car in the world, or at least I know that that's not why people buy Bentley. So to complain that you're buying McIntosh, you're buying McIntosh. You're buying it for the meters, you're buying it for the looks, the beautiful meters is a prime reason why you buy McIntosh. And the sound, the McIntosh sound. Now the third one is interesting, is nostalgia. Now I don't particularly have that much nostalgia. I do have experience where my old Korean family used to own McIntosh. Now McIntosh is big in Korea. A lot of people in Korea love McIntosh. So I had prior exposure to it, but I didn't really know of the brand. Like, I didn't really experience the brand back then. So I don't really have that much nostalgia, but a lot of people I know buy McIntosh because their father owned it or their grandfather owned it. So they've been around for a long time. So they have that nostalgia factor. And it's not like they changed the sound or aesthetic too much, because they sound McIntosh, they look McIntosh, they smell like McIntosh, and so they have that nostalgia factor still attached to them. And whatever they get, they just feel like they're experiencing what their grandfather or their father experienced. So there's that factor. Now number 4 is a little bit more technical. It's because of the output transformers. So if you see a McIntosh, whether it be a solid state or a tube amplifier, you will see these, autoformers they call it, or output transformers. And these are basically what makes McIntosh special and arguably makes them sound the way they do in a way. So you see this because they have a pattern for this, and no other company does it the way they do it. And this really allows them to make their sound very catered and focused to what they do. It's like kind of like their KFC recipe, if you so will. So they have that consistency factor going because of this autoformer and transformer. And this is a classic factor into why McIntosh amplifiers are so heavy, which I absolutely hate. Breaks my back. I mean, it's good as the person who owns it, but as a person who has to sell it, and I used to sell McIntosh, is just a whole nother story. I remember once I had to, take all the McIntosh gear and pack them up and then ship it to, or not ship it, but load it onto a truck and take them to a show and then set them up and then pack them up again. Took us good 48 hours of just straight work. But anyways, that was just a side story, kind of like a nightmarish story, but when you look back, it's kind of funny. Yeah, one of those. And that transformer really tells you why McIntosh is so great. It's the innovation, the secret recipe. It just didn't come out one day. Someone didn't wake up and say, I should slap on autoformers onto every amplifier there is. No, there was innovation involved. And if you look at history back in, when they used to have McIntosh labs, where they would ask DIY builders to bring their amplifier, and they would measure it compared to their McIntosh. They wanted competition. They wanted to make their amplifiers better. They wanted to push themselves. And that's what largely McIntosh was back then, and arguably even now. Now there's the famous story of Bob Carver, right, where he took his amplifier in a canned thing, and he measured against McIntosh, got the graph from McIntosh, and marketed himself to be a successful engineer. So if you don't know about Bob Carver, search his story up. It's a very interesting story. But there's that story. So there's a lot of history involved with McIntosh. So you're buying a part of history as well as their innovative R&D and time that went into this large part of history, if you so will. And number 5, and I put this on number 5 because I want it to be the last reason you buy McIntosh. None of the other ones were really in order, but it's because a lot of famous artists love McIntosh and they own McIntosh. So many to name. You can just search up which artist has McIntosh, and there's a whole catalog of them that just love McIntosh, and there's a reason for it. It is something of just pure emotion. It has this emotional connection to it. So it's something that a lot of musicians own for themselves, for their personal use, because it's just that musical. So that musical factor is definitely kind of, I won't say guaranteed, but kind of approved by musicians. And I know that's a kind of a weird statement to make, but it's kind of like an approval factor, right? And I want this to be the last reason you ever buy McIntosh, but just know the fact that if you own McIntosh, you are owning a piece of equipment that a lot of artists own. And that can be said about BMW and name gear as well. So it's not things so special, but it is one of the most highly owned gear by artists out there. It is one of the singly most owned. And the last reason, the 6th reason, is warranty. Now I do feel like warranty could be a little bit better with McIntosh gear, especially considering the amount of money you pay. So this is a little bit of a wake-up call for McIntosh. Not that they will probably watch this video, but the customer service is usually very excellent. They are usually very prompt, and you're buying from a reputable company one way or the other. You are assured that you're buying from one of the best companies out there in terms of luxury and customer service, warranty, and all that stuff. And they usually have very good trade up programs. They used to have it all the time when I was working at the high-end retail store. So that's something that you should consider when you're buying luxury brands, especially and spending a lot of money. You definitely should consider warranty and customer service and how long the company has been there for. That's something that you should definitely look at. So I'm sure there's more, but I think that concludes my reasons as to why McIntosh is one of the best amplifiers in the world, and why you should definitely consider listening to McIntosh once in your lifetime for sure. So thank you for watching, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Reading some of your comments. Amir Jobran, J2.0 now with silver conductors for improved detail. No, I have nothing to argue with that. Silver conductors just improves detail. Get silver hair, improves detail. I guarantee it. Kiefer Doug, the title should read How to Age 25 Years Overnight. 25 years is very generous. I think that it's like more like 35, 45 years, but that's very generous of you. Thank you. UN Sheep, I thought Steve Guttenberg broke into your house. Look, man, he doesn't need to break into my house. I mean, unless that's his thing, I will just open the door and greet him through the normal doorway. And then we can just both rock out to music with our gray hairs. Hollyton Melon, outrageous. When a shipping company calls to tell you to pick up your package, Jay, tell them you paid for door-to-door shipping. It's their job to ship. Dye your hair gray and say you're too old and frail to pick it up. I paid for the shipping. I paid. You take my money and you don't do your job. Do it. Do it. Deliver from my door.